Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for week 130 of Build Your Stash and Craft. And today we are going to be making some plaster embellishments, and you can also use it for necklaces and jewelry. And we're just using the plaster of Paris that we bought earlier in the series. Now if you're really liking using plaster of Paris, we got this, I think it was like $5. Nope, it was $4. It was $3.97. At Walmart, and you can also find large boxes of plaster of Paris at like Walmart, Lowe's, Menards, at any type of a building center, and sometimes that would be cheaper if you want to make a lot of plaster embellishments. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that. But what we're going to do is we are just going to mix this up, and plaster is mixed 2 parts plaster to 1 part water. Now, in looking at the instructions on the box tells you how to mix 1 pound, which is 1 whole package of this plaster. That's a lot of plaster to use in a short period of time. So unless you're making a large project, you don't really want to make that much at once. Make some more, because it sets up faster than they say it does. So what we're going to do is we are going to use these little ice cube trays that we got at the Dollar Tree. And so I'm going to just put this. First, I'm going to put in 1 part water, and this is just a little Jello cup. I just saved them after the Jello is gone. So, and 1 part water to 2 parts plaster. And you put the water in first, and you have less clumps. If you put the plaster in first, then you wind up, it gets quite clumpy. And then you're just going to mix it around till it all gets mixed well. Don't breathe the dust. Try and keep that away from you, because the dust does raise up as you're stirring it and as you dump it in there. And you don't want that plaster dust in your lungs. And you're just going to keep mixing until you get it mixed well. Now, I'm getting a lot of bubbles in here, probably because I'm using the 2 sticks. And the 2 of them are kind of putting more air between them. So I'm going to get rid of 1. And just make sure you get it mixed well. And then after you get it poured, you're going to drop your molds on the table a few times. Just lift them and drop them. Maybe lift them a ½ an inch or something. And just drop them a few times. And that will help those air bubbles to move away from the bottom of your project. Okay, so this looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is, I don't want these to be too thick. So I've already made some once, and some of them were kind of thick. So if you look at it, you can see this green on the inside, and I try and pour it just to that level. Because more than that, and if it gets too thick, you can always sand them down a bit. But that's just one more step you can avoid if you don't mix them, or if you don't make them too thick. And you really don't need much in there at all to fill it to that line. And even if it's a little lower than that line, I think you would be just fine. Especially like if you maybe wanted to make a necklace. You don't want them too thin, because plaster is a little bit brittle, so it can break. And so you want to make sure that and the thicker this gets, the more that when it falls in there, more of it falls in there. So you want to be careful. And like I said, this is already really getting thick. And that's why you don't want to mix up too much at one time, because you'll find out that, and this is what I'm talking about with the air bubbles. If you drop it like this, it just works those air bubbles out. And I'm going to set that one aside for now. Get this one filled before our plaster sets up. And also it helps them, whoops, I got way too much in there. It not only helps those air bubbles to get away from it brings them up from the bottom to the top, which when you use these, the bottom of this mold is what is going to show. The top of this mold that you can see, the top of your plaster that you can see, that's going to be the back side of your project. Do not rinse this dish in your sink. I usually just let it dry and then kind of just squish it back and forth, and all of the plaster breaks up, and then I just dump it in the garbage. Okay, so I'm going to just drop this one a few times, get those air bubbles moving. And if you have some, here I have some coming up the side, that's okay, because those will just, if they don't break off when you dump the ice cube or the molds out, they'll just break right off, you know, with your hands. So get those bubbles to the top and then try and put it on a very level surface and let them dry. Now it says on the box, let's see what it says about dry time. Let's see, drying. Let it dry for at least 24 hours or until thoroughly dry. A wire rack works best for drying plaster because the air can get all the way around it. So do not set it on a surface that can be damaged by evaporating water. So don't sit it on any type of a wood surface, because you don't want, it will make a mark on your wood surface. So I'm going to go set these over on my counter. We're going to let them dry for probably about an hour, and then pop them out of the ice cube trays. Then let them air dry so the air can get all the way around them. It doesn't take them very long to set, and that's when you can take them out. And like I said, just do this a few times. Once they start to set, you can't do this anymore. The air bubbles are going to be stuck where they're at. So you have to just do this right in the beginning. And I don't know if you can see here, an air bubble just popped right there. And those air bubbles are just coming to the top, if you can see them. And then once they get to the top, usually they pop. And if they don't, like I said, it doesn't make a difference. So I'm going to set these aside, and then I will be right back with the ones I've already got done, and we'll play with them. Okay, I'm back. And so this is what they're going to look like when you take them out of your containers. And see, look at this one. See how fat that is? Now you may have a use for that. You know, you may find that would make a really cool little knob on a drawer or something. So, you know, they don't have to be thin, but look at how nice and thin this one is. So that one really is almost ready to use for something. Now, if you look here, see there's a bubble there, and that's a bubble that I didn't get worked all the way to the top. And I have quite a few of them that have bubbles, what would be the bottom. See, this would be the bottom of my mold, and the thing is, I don't know if I tapped my molds on these or not. I don't know if I remembered to do that, because I do have quite a few bubbles, and usually I don't get that many bubbles, so I'm thinking I forgot to tap them off. So this is kind of what you're going to get if you don't tap those bubbles off, you know, to get them to move as this is in this way, and you want them to move up here so that they're somewhere where they're not going to be seen, especially not right there on the flat of your plaster. But now if you have one like this one right here, let's say this is not, it's not super thick, but it's not real thin either, and I want it to be thinner. So the nice thing about plaster is right after you mold it, well, I mean, these have been done for, you know, over a week, but after they dry, then all you have to do if you want to make them thinner is just sand them down. So, and when you're sanding, go back and forth 3 or 4 times and turn it, and go back and forth 3 or 4 times and turn it. The reason that you do that is you may be putting more pressure on it with your finger, you may be putting more pressure on it with your thumb. If you hold it the same way the whole time that you're sanding, you will wind up, one side will be really thin and the other side will be thicker, because you're not putting the same amount of pressure. So just go ahead and turn it every so often, and that will help you get an even sand on the bottom instead of making it crooked. And also it works good to go around in circles too, but still, even when you're doing that, make sure that you turn it, because I find that if I don't turn it, I always have one side that is higher than the other. And I don't know if it's my thumb that I press harder with or my finger that I press harder with. And even when I try not to, it seems to happen. So, and then just remember, don't breathe your plaster dust. You can put on one of your masks that you bought. That would be a very good idea to do that. And then you can just knock this off into your garbage can, again, carefully, when you are done using it. So, see how this one looks now. So it looks a little bit thinner here than here, but pretty close. So what I'm going to do is, knowing that I'm thicker here, I'm going to kind of press down on that side only for a second and give it a quick go around. And let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good all the way around. So there we go. Now we've got this much thinner. It's not as thick as it was. And now to me, this could be used nicely for a pendant or something, because it's not too fat, because too fat's not great. So I'm going to set this aside for just a second. And then once you get them sanded to what you want, you can do one of two things to seal them. I seal them before I start to play with them. And the reason that I do that is because whatever you put on there right now is going to soak in really fast, because that plaster is very absorbent. So I do one of two things. I either use clear nail polish to seal it, and it doesn't even have to be clear. It depends on what you're going to put on there next. If you're going to put colored nail polish on this, you can just put your first coat as colored nail polish. But you want to seal it so that the next layer that you put on here does not soak in. And so there we go. We've got that sealed all the way around. And then just set it aside to dry. And I do the bottom also. So you just want to make sure that you get it everywhere. And then just set it aside and let it dry. Now you can see the difference between this one and this one as far as color goes. This one has been sealed with nail polish, but it is now dry. This one is still damp because it sucked that nail polish into itself. So you have to let this dry until it gets lighter color, and then you'll know it's dry. And let's see, do they get as light as... This one is not, nothing has been done to this one. And they're pretty close in color. So you can see a little bit of dotting and stuff on here where it soaked up the nail polish. But so that one is dry, and it's about the same color as what you start out with. Then the other one is water glue. I have some here that I have already, these four here are already done with water glue. Water glue takes longer to dry because of the water. The nail polish dries faster, so that usually is my go-to. Nail polish is my go-to sealer. I'm going to put that one aside so that I don't mess with it. And then some cool things that you can do with them. These little ones, they make really cute dominoes. And you ever notice if you go to play with dominoes, like if you want to make a domino pendant or something, or a domino dangle, I always, personally, I try and find the one that doesn't have spots on it. I love the double blank is my favorite to use, because I can put that on the back and then decorate the front, and it still looks like a domino, but I don't have those dots on there. And that's just me personally. You might like the dots, and if you like the dots, you can also put dots in these. And I'll show you how to do that. You just take a not finished, not sealed. They're easier to do if they're not sealed. And then I'm gonna grab a napkin here. Put it on a piece of paper or a napkin or something, and then just use your pokey tool. And I use my smallest pokey tool to do this. And our pokey tools are just a set of screwdrivers that we got from the Dollar Tree. And the 3 Phillips screwdrivers, they come in 3 sizes. They work really great for pokey tools. So, and then just kind of find out where your center is. And these are just over they're 1 2/16 long. And so I just line it up with 1/16 on each side of the mark, or on each side of the domino. So I'm 1/16 less than 1 here, 1/16 more than 2 here. So I know that the 1/2 inch mark is my center. and I'm going to just put a little scratch right there. Then I'm going to come over to the other side and do the same thing. You can just eyeball this. You do not have to measure it. For me, because it's so small and because I never get anything straight, I'm afraid that it would really show up that it was crooked. So I do measure it when I do this. And then just put your ruler there and hold tight right on the I'm going to call it a domino, and then just run your pokey tool back and forth. I do try and go both ways to keep it so that I'm not making one side thicker than the other. And the ruler just helps me keep my line straight. And so you get the idea. I might want to actually make that a little bit deeper, but oh, that's not too bad. See? And so now it looks like a double blank domino. And like I said, if you decided that you wanted this to be double ones, then just take your pokey tool and just scrape a little circle in here. We'll make this the blank one. And there we go. So now we have the blank one. So they make really cute. I love the shape of these. As soon as I popped them out, that was the first thing I thought of was it looks like a domino. And the little mini dominoes are sometimes really hard to find. And then the other thing that you can do, oh, I should have prepared this ahead of time. Let's see how fast I can do this one. I don't need my ruler anymore because my groove is really deep. But if you put a line through the middle, now you're going to want to do you're going to want this line to be very deep because we're going to snap this in half. And if you don't make your line deep enough, I mean, you could make your line go all the way through even, you know, and not even snap it, but you definitely want it to be over halfway before you even try and break it, because otherwise I think it would break very unevenly. And this is another thing where the thinner your plaster, I mean, you don't want it too thin, but if you have a really thick one that's like a half an inch or 3/4 of an inch thick, it's going to take you a while to get through it. But now you can see it doesn't really take that long. Okay, so I'm about this far through. And I'm going to try it right there. And there we go. Now, if I had tried that and it was really resisting, I would have stopped right there. And I would have made my line deeper. But it snapped really nicely. So I'm just going to take my sandpaper here. And I'm going to sand off that little bit of extra that I have there where I did not go all the way through with the line. So that that's a nice flat side. Just about there. And there we go. So that looks pretty good, but now we're rounded here and we're square here. See? So I want to round these corners. So to round the corners, I just start a little bit in from the corner and go to just a little bit past the corner. I'm going to take it and I'm going to just kind of round. And I do it about 3 times because you don't want to take off too much. Now, if it's very uneven, turn it around. See, I'm a little bit shorter here than here, so I'm going to turn it around, do the same thing, but just like a couple of times. There we go. You don't want to like overdo it or you're not going to have anything left. I'm going to turn it over this way. And then you're just going to play with it just a little bit. And like I said, don't overdo. And there we go. Now we have a little tile. Well, this one could be rounded a little bit more, but I'm not gonna keep you here forever. So, okay. So now we have little tiles. So you can make little tiles out of these even though you don't have a mold for a little tile. And a fun thing to do with those, let me see, where's my paint? I have a wet paper towel here. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to take the top off. Whoop. Just going to get a little bit of black paint on my brush. I must not have shaken it because that's all oil. Let's give it a good shake. Okay, and remember, whenever you're using any kind of product, whether it be paint or gels or anything at all, you really need to make sure that you remember to mix them because things do settle. There we go. Now I've got some paint. I'm going to paint across the top of this one that I've already got ready. This has been sealed with fingernail polish. I'm going to wipe that paint off. Find a clean spot here. And, well, my paper towel was a little extra wet, but you can see what I did. I put a little T in there. I put a little one down here, which actually, I've wiped all of the paint out of these. There we go. That's better. Now you have a Scrabble tile. Now this takes a while, but it's something that you can just sit and do and relax. Crafting is not supposed to be about speed. It's supposed to be about keeping your mind occupied, having a good time doing what you're doing. So don't think, oh, that's going to take forever, unless you just absolutely can't, you can't do it. You can't sit there that long or whatever. I don't sit well, but I can craft forever. It doesn't, because my brain is thinking about what I'm doing and, and I am busy doing something. I'm not just sitting there doing nothing. So that's what you can do. And that's why I did cut the one in half, was so that I could make little Scrabble tiles of my own. You can use those to make necklaces. You can use them to put words on top of your journals or anything like that, or any type of a canvas you're doing. You can put them on there. You could paint that tan first so it looked tan. I would, once it's nice and dry, I would put another coat of clear nail polish on it just to seal it off. And so that is something you can do with those. Another one of my favorite, this is really my favorite thing to do, and I love making just little cabochons. And I just think that that is so pretty, and that's just made with one of these little round ones and some nail polish. So let's just try one of those. All you need is 2 different color nail polish. And you can, and I do like to make sure that I actually get the edges before I start doing any kind of mixing, because I want to make sure that I don't miss getting the whole thing painted. So I just go around and make sure that I get those bottom edges. And they don't have to be perfect or, completely, covered. Like if it's a little thin and you can see through the nail polish, you just want to make sure that there is nail polish there. Okay, let me give this one a shake too. And then we're just going to heavily put some of this silver on top. Kind of let it go down the edges a little bit. And these do take quite a while to dry. Let them dry overnight. Be careful about touching them. And I'm doing all of this on parchment paper so that they won't stick when they're dry. The sanding part, you can just use regular paper or whatever you want. But when you're sealing or anything, and then I'm just going to put a nice big drop of pink in the middle of this one. Maybe a little bit more. And then you can use anything, a pin, a skewer, a toothpick, anything that you have. And now I find that if I use a skewer, I take off the tippy point, so I have a point, but it's a little bit, it's not as thin. it just helps, to me, it seems to help it move better than a really thin point. And then you can just take this and drag it out from the center and just leave little marks on here. And then maybe just do a little circle in the center. And let's see, because I don't really want to pick that one up with how much nail polish it has on it. And so this is what that looks like. And it's just fun. And if you do that and you say, oh, I don't like that, then just drag it around some more. I like that. To me, I wish I had done that in orange because it looks like a sun to me. But let me set those aside. And then another fun one to do is just napkins. Now this one is still drying, but after it's dry, I can put some more decorative things on here. I can put feathers behind it, put some trim behind it, put little diamonds on it or whatever. And the thing is, you look at these and think, well, they're too tiny to do anything with. And to a certain extent, they almost are. But they're really kind of cool. This is going to sound funny, but they're really kind of cool to collage on. And you know, you'd think, well, it's too small to collage, but it is fun. To me, I like tiny things. So to me, it's fun to try and collage on something that's that small. So I just have a piece of a napkin here, and I'm just going to go ahead, grab a brush that I would like to use. I like flat brushes whenever I'm doing decoupage. So I'm just going to, and usually the way that I do this is I do the top first, and then put my napkin on there. And you're going to want to make sure that you have enough to cover your sides. So this is my shortest side. That's the side I'm going to look at first. And see, I don't. And that would look not nice. So I'm just going to carefully take it off while my glue is still nice and wet. And that is another reason that I like water glue, because it stays wet a little bit longer than your other decoupage type glues. And water glue is 2 parts glue to, now I've totally lost it. Yes, 2 parts glue to 1 part water. And it lasts a long time. This water glue right here, I have not used in probably at least 4 or 5 months, because I've got another one also that I had made up. And when I took this out, it was the glue on the bottom, the water on the top, and all I did was shake it really good. And it's perfect. If you have a really good sealing container, it will really last. I mean, mine just lasts forever. I've never had it dry out on me. You just need a good seal. And all I have here is a little plastic in a cottage cheese container. And I don't even think that the bowl and the lid went together. As a matter of fact, I know they didn't. The lid for that bowl was kind of loose type lid. And so I tried what I had in my cupboard, and that one fit nice and tight. I'm going to take off a little bit of this. I do like to wrap it a little bit down underneath, if I can. And so just take a little of that off and take what's left over and just pull it over here. And then you can cut your corners if you want to. Cut them on an angle so that you don't have any kind of bulk. I find that with a napkin you don't really get much bulk. And so I just pull the side down, kind of fold it over like that. Just kind of fold it over like that. Make sure I have some glue underneath. And then just glue it down. And then when I'm done, I would cover this back with some felt. Or even just a little piece of paper, or even another piece of napkin. Don't forget to put the glue on your plaster before you put your napkin down, so that you have glue underneath and over top. And there we go. Now I'm going to put a little bit more glue on the top, because I kind of pulled that up a little bit. And there we go. I think that that looks really pretty. I really like that. And again, on this one, because the water glue dries pretty matte, it looked shiny there because it was still wet, but it usually dries pretty matte. So if it's something that I want to shine a little bit, I use my clear nail polish and put that on there. So, and then I just put my lid on, give it a burp to let the air out. And then the one thing that I do always do, if you'll notice, I've got like strings of glue here on the edge from where I took the top off. The one thing I do is when I get it all sealed up, then I take it and I give it a good shake. What happens is a little bit of glue gets around that edge on the top. It does dry a little bit, just like this, but that gives you a good seal. So that's another thing that I do to make sure that my water glue stays good. So I really think that that's, I mean, there's a million things that you can do with it, but those are the things that I wanted to show you. I'm going to be back in just a minute. Well, for you, just a second. And I'm going to let our other ones dry. We'll take them out of the container so you can see them come out. And I will let you know what we need for next week. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And here are some of the things that we just did. And like I said, the sky is the limit. So I thought that we would unmold these ones. They have been sitting for about a half an hour. And they are solid to the touch. And so now what we're going to do is just, I wonder if it works like, no, used to be if you twisted the old, and you're just going to push on those. And that's why these little, because you push on them and they just pop right out of there. And that's why these little trays work really well. You want the kind with this little plastic in the bottom so you can pop them out. But so here they are, and if you look at them, they're dark as far as coloring goes compared to one that's already dry. So they kind of come out a little bit gray. They'll dry. When they're dry, they'll be white. And so we have all of these to play with. And we did pretty good on our depth. This one's a little bit thick, but we got a lot of really nice thin ones, which to me, those are the like that's, I usually make mine that thin if I have to sand them down to get them there. But they turned out pretty good. There's a pretty thick one. And so we've got all of those. And now let's pop these ones out and see how they are. There we go. And now I just wipe these out. I don't wash them, and you definitely don't want to get the plaster in your sink. Okay, here's one where the little bit came up the edge. You just knock that off, comes right off. And now we have all of these. We have a few thick ones, but we have a lot that are really nice, a really nice thickness. So just be careful when you're pouring. It just saves you work in the end. That's not fun work, so. But there we go. So that's what they turn out like. Now I'm going to let them dry for 24 hours like this, and then I'll be able to do whatever I want with them. I'm going to seal them first, and then after I seal them, then I will go ahead. I suppose we could just leave those there. Go ahead and paint them or do whatever I feel like doing with them. So that's what we did this week. And here are our finished ones. Well, these ones aren't actually finished, but we did those today. So what we're going to need for next week. Alrighty, we are going to need an 11 by 14 picture frame from the dollar store. This is $1. If you can get a cheap, everyone at the dollar store says that they are glass panes. So if you can find a cheap, even if you go to the secondhand store, an 11 by 14 picture frame with plexiglass in it. I would have preferred plexiglass, but they don't have plexiglass at the dollar store. And I wasn't able to go look at Walmart, and I figured they would probably be quite expensive. So there's $1. We will need this 2-pack. This is 2 pieces of 11 by 14 cutting boards. They're just little plastic cutting boards. So that's 2. We will need 4 lights. And just ones that you can just turn on with a battery, and then we will need 2 packages of batteries to go along with the lights. Just make sure you get enough batteries to go with the lights, and all of this came from the Dollar Tree. So we have 4 of these and 2 of these. That's 6, 7, 8. A roll of the heavy-duty tape is 9. This is not. This is mailing tape is what I meant. That's 9. And then we are going to need a basket that is approximately the same size as our frame. So this basket didn't actually have a size on it, but if I set it here, it fits kind of like the same size as my frame. So that's what we're going to need. We're going to need a basket about the size of our frame, and if you can find one like this, this works just perfectly. So there's 1, 2, the cutting mats, 3 for the photo frame, 4 lights is 7, 2 batteries is 9, and the tape is 10. That's what we're going to need for next week. You may want to wait on this project and see if you like it or not, because we are going to use $5 out of our bank. If you don't like this project next week, you just take that $10 that I'm deducting from the bank and use it for something else that you would like. So I hope that you enjoyed this project today. I really have fun playing with these, and they're just something nice to have around. They would make good flower centers, especially on a nice big flower. And like that blue and silver one, that is just so pretty. That would make a gorgeous large flower, like for a wedding bouquet or something, or any kind of a bouquet, but you know, that size flower. And you know, just great little embellishments. You can put cabochon, or I forget what they call them, but anyways, bales. You can put bales on the back and turn them into necklaces. They're just, you could make yourself a whole set of dominoes. Can't afford to go buy them. You could make a whole set for very, very minimal amount of money. So thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.